Social credit systems are the new ways to restrict your personal and corporate freedoms. This unfolded very recently, and I want to talk with you about countries that are currently implementing social credit systems and countries that may not be able to implement these systems, and the latter are countries you should consider moving to. During the last crisis, the mainland decided to implement the social credit system. It is a system where you're rated based on your contributions as well as your failures in this country. Plus, the social credit system works through face recognition, which is a technological feature that we utilize every single day. You know it from opening up your cell phone and verifying your identity before you can log into your online bank account. Facial recognition has become a must to complete our daily transactions, our daily tasks. It is nothing new. How does the social credit system in China work? It determines your status in the country, your status as a citizen, based on your honesty, your trustworthiness, hard work, and devotion to the country. Needless to say, they want complete obedience. It is the ultimate goal. In my humble opinion, it is no surprise that the mainland implemented this new social credit system during the last crisis, where there was just no better time before to get people to listen to such a system, to get people to try it out. Once people are in a cycle of obedience, it is much easier to enforce further obediences on people. And that's why I believe this social credit system was implemented in late 2022. To give you an idea of how the social credit system could affect your personal status in a very technologically advanced country, I wanted to give you several examples of how this could work. Let's say in 2025 you're late for filing your taxes. For whatever reason, you just couldn't get your taxes done yet. Maybe you had so much business that you had to delay filing for taxes later on. Maybe your accountant left you. Who knows what could have happened? Maybe you had some personal issues to deal with, or you were late for different reasons. It doesn't matter. You being late on filing your taxes could negatively impact your social credit system in the country that implements such a system. Let me give you a different example. Let's say you are concerned about the current immigration policies of the country where you reside. For whatever reason, you expressed your opinion, wanting to induce a change from the leadership of the country. Guess what? The country is not aligned with your vision, with your point of view, and consequently, the country decides to give you a minus. In this statement of yours, this perspective that you shared, even though you didn't have any bad intentions at all, would be added to your social credit score. And it would have negatively affected your score, even though it is just a personal opinion of yours. You didn't engage in any violence, you didn't create civil unrest, but because your opinion, your point of view was different than the point of view of the head of the country, you are now in for some trouble. We have seen a similar situation play out during the last crisis in Canada, where Canada started blocking people's bank accounts. All kinds of things happened there. Potentially, there are some positive aspects to the social credit system. I always want to provide full transparency, what I think is good, what I think is bad. Let's get down to it. If you can be disciplined about certain aspects of life, evolving your corporate life, such as compliance, accounting, I think the social credit system score could actually be a tremendous help to someone that's maybe new in the world of business, they don't know what they're doing, and of course, what certain governments don't want is for you to break any laws. I think if the social credit system is implemented in a way to not only get more obedience from its citizens, but also to create the disciplines necessary to run a successful business and be compliant with local laws, that would be a good thing, because oftentimes there are compliance issues. However, should the social credit system be fully applied to all things involving your life in the country, even very trivial things, maybe that would be inappropriate and it would be considered tyranny. So there is a fine line between creating the right obedience that follows compliance necessary to keep the country intact and follow legislation passed, and crazy obedience that may infringe on your personal rights. So basically what leaderships want to do is divide people into categories. Category 1 would be people that are not obedient, that didn't follow the laws, didn't follow the instructions, and they would be placed in the blacklist. And once you're in the blacklist, it's very difficult to get out of the blacklist. It can take years to restore your social credit score in that country. So you want to avoid getting on the blacklist. Definitely avoid it. On the other hand, we have the red list. It's comprised of people who were obedient, who followed instructions clearly, and so they're dividing people in these two categories. I know this doesn't sound very appealing, especially if you're the kind of person who tends to forget things, or if you're the kind of person who does not do things by the book. If that's you, then the social credit system probably sounds quite scary. Now the question is, what can you do? Where should you go? If you are concerned about the social credit system being implemented by more countries worldwide, not just in the East, but also in Western countries, what should you do? What are some of the factors that are important to consider? And we want to look at past data, especially history matters a lot. There are a couple geographic locations that I personally recommend to avoid falling victim to the social credit system that could be implemented in the not so distant future. Eastern Europe is a region that is not very receptive to listening to its leadership. And we have seen this during the past crisis, where its citizens of certain countries in that specific geographic location did not listen particularly well to the authorities. This goes all back to the old Soviet Union days where people had to suffer quite a bit. And some of these people that were around during the collapse of the Soviet Union, which happened in the late 80s, we're talking about Generation and the boomers, these two categories, right, they still are alive today, and they experienced the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they know what they were told and what was true, and so they're just less receptive to listen, which can have positive implications as well as negative implications. However, countries like Albania, Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, Serbia, Poland would be fantastic options if you want to relocate to a country where the population may not always be in agreement with what the government dictates. Then this may be something worth considering, maybe a geographic location worth looking into. Another geographic location worth looking into is, of course, Latin America, because the culture is just so different. It's more of a I want to do whatever I want kind of culture versus a yes, I do whatever you want type of culture. It is different. And if you have lived in both Latin America and the very eastern part of our hemisphere, you know the differences. And only people who live there for a significant amount of time will probably be able to attest to the statement that I just made. There are some key differences. We're talking about how things are perceived and what is being followed. There are just two very distinct categories of people, and you want to potentially find a places, let's say Latin America, not so technologically advanced places where certain measures such as facial recognition may not be implemented for a certain amount of time until these countries have become more technologically advanced, which could happen decades from now. We're not talking about years here. Technological advancements and monitoring systems that would need to be put in place would take decades to create, and the whole other question is whether the people will follow these systems or not. With the Americanization and modernization of Latin America, it becomes increasingly more likely that even Latin American countries will be more receptive towards such an obedient strategy. There are some serious considerations to make. I do believe that living in the countryside will be the new way of life because fewer restrictions, fewer government controls, there's just more in it for you. There's just more freedom in the countryside. Plus, you're not likely to be surrounded by a crowd that may be completely obedient to a new legislation that's been passed. If you're interested in obtaining a residence permit in a country that is currently not part of the social credit system, please contact us now. We would love to work with you and help you obtain residency somewhere in South America. You should see our website displayed right on the screen, and there should also be a link below the video. Thank you so much for watching Nomad Elite. We appreciate your attendance, and we see you on the next video.